Hello, aspirants. Welcome to our conversation series with esteemed faculty members of VisionIAS. In today's video, we have with us Jatin Gupta, sir, a senior faculty of Polity. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Prateek.
UPSC Prelims is on 16th June 2024, and it is a time for huge challenges for the aspirants. In this context, what are the challenges that aspirants face in this period?
It's very close to the exam right now, and luckily, because of the elections, the dates for the exams have been pushed, and the candidates have got some extra time. But at the same time, I see that the same nerves, the same jitters are there among all the candidates, those who are preparing for the exam. At this point of time, when there is a lot of content that is available in the market, a lot of aspirants get very confused. The first thing is that they don't know that what content they should pick up from the market and what they should not. And there is always a constant fear of missing out that is there among themselves. The second issue, which I also see, is that they don't really know how much time they should dedicate to revision, how much time they should dedicate to studying the current affairs, and whether they should be studying a particular subject before the other one. So these are some of the crucial questions that I keep receiving from the aspirants over and over again. And I believe that it's very important for them to chalk out a proper strategy to deal with these challenges.
Right, sir. Sir, in your opinion, what should be the key approach to address these challenges that you have mentioned?
I think the first is that they should not feel that they are missing out on anything. Extra knowledge is not really going to get them anywhere. What is really going to help them get success in this examination is to be able to have a clear mindset of what they know and what they don't. Usually, the candidates are very confused about whether they should pick up a certain book, and they think that that may be the magic wand which would help them qualify the examination. Let me break this to all the candidates that none such book exists in the market. What they should do is have self-belief in the books that they have already covered. They should try to revise the content that they have covered multiple times earlier instead of trying to run after new material. Secondly, I also feel that at this point of time, they should try to learn as much as possible through questions. That's the most effective way of learning any subject, because that way, not only would they be able to retain more, they would also be able to revise in a better manner if they learn through questions, because they can test their knowledge, which they have learned through the basic books, with the help of the questions. I also personally feel that the candidates should refrain from talking a lot to their friends during this time of the preparation, because that tends to build a lot of unnecessary pressure on them when they ask the others how the preparation is going for them, and then they tend to think that maybe there is something lacking in my own preparation, and they tend to do that little extra. Another important input from my end would be that they should prioritize how they revise certain subjects. For example, I feel that a subject like history, art and culture, which is easily forgettable, may be left for revision towards the end. But a subject like polity, economy, geography, which are more conceptual in nature, could be touched upon for not just finishing the syllabus, but revision as well in the initial stages of their revision plan. Since we have round about 2 months remaining for the examination, I would suggest that in the last 1 month, they should only revise whatever they have covered earlier. Possibly in the next 1 month, they could cover up any of the remaining topics which they feel are important for the examination.
Very nicely put, sir. So, sir, you have mentioned that taking test and analyzing one's preparation is key to success for this exam. In this regard, can you brief us on what is Abhyaas Prelims 2024 all about?
So Abhyaas is a wonderful initiative which has been launched by VisionIAS. This is the closest that you can get to the UPSC Prelims Examination experience. More than 30,000 students appear in this test, in this exercise. We are conducting this over 100 cities. The best part about it for me is that it will give you an experience of what it would feel on the exam day to be sitting in a hall full of candidates. So all the jitters, all the nerves that you may have on the exam day, you can address them if you appear in the Abhyaas examination. Also, more importantly, I feel that it would help you analyze yourself as well before you actually go into the main examination, because you can observe your body language, you can observe the kind of thinking, the mindset that you have, and possibly work a bit on that before you go into the real exam.
Right, sir. So in that context, sir, how a student can effectively utilize Abhyaas for their prelims preparation?
So, Pratik, I think giving Abhyaas is one part of it. And I personally believe that every candidate, whether or not you are appearing in the prelims examination this year, you should appear in the Abhyaas test, because this will really help you prepare for the next years as well if you're planning to give the prelims next year. Second, I believe that once you've given the test, that's when the real battle starts, and that's when the real preparation and the utility of the Abhyaas test starts. Firstly, you should analyze your attempt very closely. You should analyze which are the questions in which you have gone wrong. You should possibly segregate those questions, not just in terms of subjects, but also in terms of what are the kind of mistakes that you have made in the test. For example, a candidate ideally should try to identify if they have made factual mistakes, if they have made any conceptual mistakes, or was it just a silly mistake? Because I feel that factual mistakes can be overcome by a bit of knowledge. And if you've made a factual mistake, you already know about it now, you will not go wrong with it in the exam. If you have made a conceptual mistake, then it's a point of worry. Then in that case, you should go back, you should possibly look up the basic book for that subject or for that concept, revise it again, and then possibly try to test yourself on more questions related to that concept. If it's a silly mistake, then it's a lot about controlling your nerves. And that also is a very important experience. You should understand that what was going through your mind when you made that silly mistake. You should try to reanalyze and possibly make a note of that, because I personally believe that when you write things, you're able to retain them for longer. So you should make a note that I made this silly mistake, and possibly my belief is chances are very high that you will not repeat that mistake in future. Another important thing which I feel Abhyaas can give you as an experience is that it can tell you where you exactly stand in comparison to the other candidates. Here I want to give a word of caution. A lot of times some students come to us and they're very worried about the scores that they get in these tests. You should not be very worried about the scores. What you should be worried about is your attempts and the accuracy rate that you have achieved. So you should try to compare your attempt with the other candidates on specific questions. For example, if there was question X in the paper, which 80% of the candidates were able to get right, and you got it wrong, it means that there is something wrong. You need to focus on that specific concept and that specific topic. If there is a question which, let's say, only 20% of the students or the aspirants got it right, but you also got it wrong, then it is perfectly fine. You don't need to worry, because ultimately it's a competitive examination. But if there is a question where 95% of the candidates have got it right and you got it wrong, then it means you are making some very elementary mistakes in your preparation. And interestingly, once you have given the Abhyaas test, all this data is available on the dashboard. So you can analyze your performance question by question. You can see what the performance of the other candidates is. You can see in which subject you have higher accuracy rate and a lower accuracy rate. For example, I would be very keen to see if in polity my accuracy rate is higher or not, because that's a subject which usually fetches high marks in the exam. In geography, I should not make mistakes. In economy, I should not make mistakes. But probably in some current affairs, fact-based questions, if I made mistakes, it is perfectly fine. It does happen to a lot of candidates. So therefore, my advice to candidates will be that don't look at the final scores. Don't even look at the cutoffs. They are just to give you a feel of what the exam would be like. Try to go deeper into the analysis. Look at if there are subjects in which you are making more mistakes. Analyze that. Look at the kind of mistakes that you are making. Also look at whether you are whether you are able to get a particular question correct and the others are able to not get it correct, and do that analysis. That very fine and minute analysis, in my opinion, is what is the key to achieving success out of the Abhyaas. And one last point, what I would say is that Abhyaas actually needs more time to analyze than giving the test. Giving the test is just a 2-hour exercise. But in my opinion, you should spend at least 4 to 5 hours to analyze your performance in the test. But at the same time, in the same breath, I would say that don't be very disheartened if you don't do well in the test. It's a learning curve for you. If you do really well, don't be very elated, because UPSC exam is a different ballgame altogether.
Right, sir. So, moving to the subject-specific aspects. So, you have been teaching polity for a very long time. So, in this context, sir, what advice would you give to the aspirants for approaching polity in the last 2 months?
So, two things are very important in polity. I think conceptual clarity and you being able to relate topics to each other. So, if you look at the trend of the questions that have been asked in the recent past, I would suggest that students should revise the basic concepts as many times when it comes to polity, because often what UPSC does is that they try to play around with very minute changes in the options and the candidates get very confused. So try to revise the concepts as many times. Also, ideally, look at the previous year questions for last 10 years and attempt all of them for polity. I believe that if you go through all those 10 years questions, the basic books such as the NCRTs and any of the class notes that you may have, multiple number of times, chances of you doing well in a subject like polity are much higher. And very importantly, students should not lose focus of the fact that polity is ultimately a subject all about common sense. So in legal world, we always say that never leave your common sense at home. So whenever you are stuck in a question, try to use your common understanding of law as well. And chances are high that you will not arrive at the wrong answer.
Right, sir. Sir, a lot of students are confused about what to study for polity, especially related to the high fetching areas, high focus areas. So, in your opinion, what would be the most important areas or topics that students should focus on currently for polity?
So, to be very honest, it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly which areas, but considering the current events that have been happening in the last year, I would say that some of the topics which are very important would be anything related to elections, anything related to election commission, the political parties, some provisions related to disqualification of the members of the parliament. Also, since this is an election year, I think they can expect questions on the registration of the political parties, questions related to the recognition of the political parties, possibly questions related to model code of conduct as well. Other area which would be of relevance from the current perspective would be the topic of parliament, because there has been a lot of news about the disqualification, expulsion of members of parliament. Some of the committees of the parliament have been in news, so they should give special importance to that as well. The changes that have been brought in the criminal laws are also important. I don't think that UPSC will go into very, very specific questions, but they may ask some broad changes that have been brought in these laws this year. But even from the static portion perspective, I think it's very easy to analyze some of the topics which have been of great weightage in the last few years. First topic I would say is anything related to the theme of federalism. Center-state relations is very important. Fundamental rights, of course, are perhaps the most important topic for prelims examination. Even the entire topic related to constitutional bodies is very important for the prelims. So static portion, I would suggest that they should focus on these. In the current affairs, they should specifically look out for any of the Indian Express Explained. They should look for the Hindu newspaper. They should look for any of the important news items that have been there in the last 6 months and try to go back to the basics of that particular news, whichever has been there in the current affairs.
Sir, related to stress and anxiety, a lot of students face this challenge in the last few months before the exam. So, how and what would be your suggestions for the students who face such problems, especially during this period and on the day of exam?
So stress and anxiety is a big problem, and I have already started to receive mails and calls from a lot of students, those who are anxious about the exam. I think the first advice that I would give to all the students is that ultimately this is just an examination. This is not a test of your ability. This is not a test of your character. You are much bigger than this exam. So whether or not you do well in this exam will not determine the course of your life. And once you start thinking like that, you can let go of a lot of pressure. Second thing which I would say, that how they can actually handle anxiety and stress. Firstly, try to get good sleep. Sleep is very important. I know a lot of people would say that 4 hours sleep is enough or 6 hours sleep is enough, but sleep 8 hours. Give yourself enough rest, because your body and mind is working throughout the day. Give it enough rest. Eat well, because a lot of students, they tend to think that the diet that they take is not so important, but that also contributes to the anxiety and the stress which you face in the exam. Fourth and very important thing is that don't surround yourself with negative people. If you have friends or family members who can motivate you, who can keep you in a positive frame of mind, talk to them on a regular basis. But if there are any people in your life, it could be anyone, those who are negative, just keep them at bay for some time. Also, don't really discuss your preparation strategy with friends in the last 2 months, in a group. If you are confident of speaking to a friend who may motivate you, that is another thing. But don't discuss that how much I have done, how much have you covered, because that also gives a lot of unnecessary anxiety and stress. And I always believe that the best way to be able to prepare yourself for an exam like the UPSC is to give as many tests as possible. I have always believed in the saying that if you want to bleed less in the war, then you must bleed in the peacetime. So you must give as much tests, as many mocks to prepare yourself, so that when you walk into the examination hall, that day it feels just like another exam which you will be giving.
Wonderfully put, sir. Sir, last question from my side. So what one message would you like to give to aspirants who are preparing or who are appearing for this exam in 2024?
I would like to quote Swami Vivekanand. He would say that all the knowledge is within you. I would tell to all my students, all the aspirants, those who are preparing, those who are appearing in the exam this year, that have self-belief. No amount of new books, new knowledge is going to help you. What is going to help you is constant revision of what you have already covered. Have the self-belief, have the faith, and just take that leap of faith while going into the examination hall. Yes, everyone feels anxious. Even when I gave the exam, I have seen so many toppers. I have not met even one of them who did not feel anxious before the exam. It is very natural to have some kind of nervousness. But what is important is that you just focus on each and every question that comes your way. It's like in T20 cricket, if Virat Kohli was to be playing an important India-Pakistan final, he would not be focusing on what the score is. He would focus on every ball that is being bowled by the bowler to hit it out of the park. That's what you should try and do in the exam. Take it minute by minute, question by question, and I'm sure that you will do really.
Sir, thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights with the students.
It was a pleasure, Pratik.
Students, we hope that this conversation was useful to you. On that note, we wish you all the best for the upcoming UPSC Prelims Exam 2024. Thank you.